Oh, you're probably here for the sound system tour, right? Okay, so yeah, so let's do an overview of that, all of the different buttons and all of the different speakers and what they do, all the microphones, everything. Sound good? Right on, let's do it. Welcome to the booth. Here's the soundboard. We're about to go over the basics of the soundboard. Most of it is very simple, so don't panic, and let's get into it. Okay, overview of the soundboard. On the back over here is the power switch. You just push that in and out. All of these silver sliders connect to a specific microphone channel. So when you use one of these are just for volume on one of the microphones. That could be wireless, it could be body mics, it could be the mics out of the pit, podium, any of that stuff. If you look up here, it's labeled what each mic is. For example, right here we have the podium mic. Then we have over here, we have a piano microphone that's plugged in down in the pit, and that will turn up the piano. Now, as you see, everything is turned down right now. This far right slider is your master. Usually we leave that right at 0, leave it right there. Now, on this left side, you see layers. Right now we have just one layer of microphones. That means that each of these are assigned to layer A and that channel. If you hit layer B, then you have a whole different set of layers, and so far we're programmed to hear on layer B. Right here you see a booth microphone. You should see this light blinking. That is the booth mic, which is up here, looks like this most of the time. I'm going to turn that up, and you should hear some extra sound coming out of the speakers in the auditorium. You can see that we're at a decent level. You should be able to hear a little bit from the auditorium, and that sound is coming from the booth mic and not any of the others. We have also a computer input, so any sound coming from the computer will come out of this channel right here. So you adjust the volume of the computer here. So if you're doing any kind of sound for dances or any kind of sound effects for musicals, any of that stuff, it'll probably come out of the computer, and this is your volume control there. You have overhead mics. Those are the microphones that are over the stage down there. There's two. There's one stage left and there's one stage right, and that's what controls those. On every single channel you have these top white buttons right here. Those are your mute buttons. If you just want to leave the volume control in the same spot, but you just want to mute them intermittently in between things, that's your option. So you have extra sound here, and then if you hit that mute button, then it turns that sound off. Pretty easy. Now on the right side here you see auditorium, class, stage, dressing rooms. Leave it up on the top. If we need to adjust any of those other ones, that'll be with permission, but you hit those, you can adjust the volume and everything that goes into those different spots. The classroom, just the stage, speakers, then obviously the dressing rooms. Moving on to the screen and the touch screen. So if you see these green buttons, that selects that specific channel that you want to adjust the levels for here. So we'll again go with the booth mic. You see these lights light up, then you go to processing, and then you have all of these adjustments. If you want to go into the booth adjustments specifically, then you go ahead and tap on the screen. You can look at the different levels of low frequency, low mid frequency, high mid, and high frequency. If you want the bass to be a whole lot louder, then you go ahead and take that low frequency, which is the purple one, and go ahead and just drag it up so it's lower now. If you drag it down, it has less bass. And if you keep going up the line, for example, all the way to the other extreme, if you want it to be really, really clear, really pingy, then you take that high frequency and take it up. If you want the high frequency to go lower, then you drag that down. And you can select all of those through here too. If I tell you that it's too hot or to turn the gain down, that's the preamp here. So you can tell right now already we've got our volume all the way up, it's unmuted, and right now there's no sound coming out. That means that our gain is too low, and if you turn it up too high, then you're going to get feedback. So you want it at the right spot where your levels are good. You can keep your volume down to 0, hopefully, and then you can adjust your preamp or your gain so that the levels are hitting properly. So if I tell you to turn the gain down, that's this one. So we have these soft keys. You have 1 through 4. You have 13 through 16 right now that we have programmed, or the top to bottom. We have 1 as stop, we have 2 as play, we have 3 as skip, and we have 4 as back. So if you need to go through the order of your sound effects, that's what these are right now. If you go to utility and SQ drive, it's showing you in here what the sound effect is called. It's reading it off of this flash drive right here that has the sound effects loaded onto it, and that will play these in the order that you want it to. So I'm skipping to the second sound effect, going to the USB, which is that, turning that on, hitting play, giant falling. So you can skip through those. That's what those are for. Those are the basics of the soundboard. When you are ready to be done and you're leaving the booth, you go to processing, shut down. Do you want to continue? You hit yes, and then it'll tell you that you can push the button on the back. If any of our audience members need a little extra boost, these are the receivers that you can hand to them. You hand them one of these and one of these earpieces, and then they can hear the audio just a little bit better. Right here we have what are called the shark fins. These are the antennas that are sending signal from the wireless microphones to the receiver and sending signal into the soundboard and out of the speakers. On each side of the booth, we have one of these speakers as a monitor, so you can hear basically what the audience is hearing, because the sound is very different up here compared to down in the audience. Here we have the touch screen that's in the booth that controls a lot of the system also. Under system control, you have certain things like current audio mode. If it's in manual mix, that means that the soundboard is in control. If it's in auto mix, that means that these screens or the screen down in the pit or backstage are in control, and you can run Bluetooth devices off of that. Or if there's a presenter that's plugged in down there, they can run their audio from there. On here, you have the different sliders. We have the speakers, that's the entire auditorium speakers. If you touch at the bottom, that mutes those. You have how much audio is going into the classroom, how much is going above the stage in the monitors above the stage. Over here, you have an on and off switch for the projector itself. So you can turn that on down right here instead of with a remote. And you can also open and close the shutter, which doesn't turn the projector off. It just hibernates it so that you're not seeing what's on the projection. Right here, you have a screen up and screen down. Currently that is not working, so don't panic if it doesn't work. And right here you have whether or not the booth is in control of the projection or if down in the pit is in control. So if you want the pit to be in control, you go ahead and select that one. If you want the booth to be in control of the visuals, then you go ahead and select that. All of that is under the audio tab also. It's all the same stuff. Advanced audio, this is the control over specific speakers. Don't mess with this unless I tell you to. And then you have the audio. Same thing as before, just a little bit more in depth. We've got all of the speakers, you got your classroom and stage and some additional outputs, the aux and everything. So if you need to adjust just some very basic sound without having to turn on the soundboard up here, then you can go through these touch screens and use these to do that. Under the tools button here, you can mute the intercom in the booth. You can dim out these screens both down there and up here. With certain times, you can change the brightness of the LCD screen, and you can also adjust the volume for the assisted listening folks here. If you go to the power button, obviously that asks you if you want to power the system down. The answer is no, don't do that unless I tell you to. Coming or not? Let's go. All right, so these guys right here are 4 different inputs, 4 different microphones. This side are always hot. You plug these in, what that means is you plug them in, it doesn't matter if the soundboard is turned on or not, these will work. So if you are helping somebody put a presentation together and we don't have anybody to run any sound in the sound booth, come and plug a microphone into that and it'll work just fine. You can get all the sound, all of the microphone sound you need out of these. Then we have these 2 channels which are run by the board up in the booth, as are all of the other ports along the bottom of here. Let me show you those. So this plate is far pit right by the stairs. You've got 2 mic imports here and you've got an aux or audio import here. So you've got a right and a left. if you're doing it that way, or you've got an aux port right there, far pit right under right wing. Now here, far pit left, right under left wing by the ramp, you've got 4 mic inputs. You can just plug those in. Those are ran by the board also. So if you plug anything into here, it's got to come from the booth. Okay, so now that we've covered the pit inputs, I want to talk about right behind backstage right here and backstage right here. There are other microphone inputs so that you can plug in other mics from backstage. For example, if you look right here, you can see the podium. This podium is plugged in back here into one of those ports, and all of those are controlled from the booth. You have to control the volume and everything from there. Also, back here, backstage right here, is another Bluetooth connection. So if you want to connect any Bluetooth devices, you can pair that back here. There's also another one right here, and the touch screen that you can control stuff. You can also send projection and everything from here as well. And let me cover that really quick. Okay, so here we have pit controls. On this screen is where you control a lot of the same things that I talked about up in the booth. You can control the projector, sound, a lot of the sound, basics of the sound, just some of the volume control of the overall of the speakers of the classroom and the overheads above the stage. Here is where you pair your Bluetooth. If you're using a Bluetooth device like a phone or anything, you can pair it here. If you want to plug in, you've got those inputs here. If you plug in your computer to do a presentation or anything and have that run through the booth, then you can plug in your computer here through an HDMI port and then control what screen is in control of the projector from here. So if you want to present something from down here, you select it on that screen. Make sure that you are in the center projection setting, so then you know that you can run stuff from there. But that's an overview of this. If you want to know how to use the screen, watch earlier where I talked about the screen control. Now let's talk about speakers. We've got lots of speakers to talk about. We've got our stage left above the left wing right here. We've got another one right here above stage right, the right wing. And then we have all of this. There's an array, which means the speakers kind of come down like this. There's several speakers that go in order that way. And then we've got a subwoofer in here and 2 other speakers just like these up there pointing in their directions so that the rest of the audience can hear the sound really well. If you're in the booth and I tell you to change it right from left, it's going to pan right to left. The sound will come out of here or this half of the speakers, and then if you go the other way, they'll come out of this half. Those are the audience speakers. Those are the speakers that the audience will use to hear all of the audio. So those are the main cluster of the speakers that you're going to be monitoring. I already talked about the speakers in the booth so that you can kind of hear what the sound is like coming to the audience. Now let's go talk about the monitors above the stage, in the dressing rooms, and in my classroom. So now let's talk about these monitors here. We've got a speaker there and one here. Those are the speakers that are directly above the stage so that the actors can hear everything that's going on. They can hear their piano cues and all of their other sound that they need to hear. That will come out of here. If we're doing any work on the stage and we want sound, we want most of it to come out of these instead of the main speakers because we can hear those better. All right, so in the dressing rooms, you have this speaker here above the dressing room, and you have a volume control right here. Those are the speakers that if there's anything going on stage and you're in here and you need to make sure you know what's going on the stage, that's what those are for. Leave those volume knobs up unless I tell you to turn them down. But this is the speaker that you will hear from that's on the stage, and this is the one that the intercom for the rest of the school comes through. And that's the same in the women's dressing room. Okay, now we're in my classroom. I've got a speaker here and one over here. That's the sound that comes out of the auditorium through any of those microphones. There's also volume control on this wall right here for those speakers. During a show, if you're in my room and you need to hear what's going on on the stage, that's where the sound is going to come from. You want that turned up pretty high so that you can hear, so you don't miss any cues. If there's something going on in the auditorium and I'm in class or anything, we want to turn that down. That's using that volume knob. So that is the overview of all of the different speakers that we've got. Now let's go and talk about where the microphones are, where the chargers are for the batteries and everything. Okay, so we're backstage left now. All of the batteries for the microphones, for the handheld microphones, are right here. All of the handhelds are here, and so on. All of the other microphones are right here. So if you need a microphone, you can come through my classroom. You can go backstage, back up the ramp, instead of having to go all the way across or through there. This is where all of those are. That is the overview of the sound system. As far as use of all of the microphones go, we're gonna go over that in a different video, so go ahead and check that out if you need to learn how to use all of the different microphones. If you have any other questions about the overall sound system, how it works, what you need to make it work, come and talk to me, ask me any questions, but this should give you a pretty good feel for all of the different parts of the sound system. Let's do it. Okay, welcome to the booth. We've got our soundboard here. I'm about to go, most of them are very simple, so stick to the simplicity of it. This is the booth. And a speaker there. Normally they'll be about lowered. Help you, I will